Hello, lovely beings. I'm JJ Rose. I am going to start this episode a little differently than I normally do, in the sense that I am going to ask some questions so you could see if this episode is right for you. So, would you like to be in better control of your emotions? Would you like to have deeper and more meaningful connections with other people? Less arguments, more healing, more substantial conversations other than how's the weather? Would you like to understand other people better? Would you like to live a more happy and meaningful life? Knowing yourself will assist you with all of this and more, especially with understanding dreams, spiritual encounters, and being able to communicate with spirit on a better, easier, and more clear level versus having to constantly feel like you're in a game of Sherlock Holmes and Clue, which, in all transparency, you're still going to feel like from time to time. But when you know yourself, you are therefore able to understand the world around you on a much deeper and bigger scale. And from that, you're able to have more empathy and compassion towards other people. You're also able to see red flags a lot easier and therefore able to put up boundaries and or just quarantine or ice people out depending on what you need to do. You're also going to be able, through this process, to understand your own behaviors and reactions. And this is the part where I will explain thoroughly, but you're going to learn to distinguish what is your ego versus what is the true you, and how sometimes that ego has been getting in the way of your progress, and other times how that ego has helped you. And all of this information is a journey of self discovery. And a journey of self exploration is the most adventurous of all journeys because you are the most fascinating person in the entire world to yourself. And here's why: because you live in your body, you've lived your life, right? But have you ever fully broken down different parts of yourself? I mean, we've all done a little bit of shadow work on some level, but do you really know yourself? And I ask this question because I have constantly been meeting people who are absolutely unaware of themselves. They're unaware of their actions. They're unaware how their behaviors cause reactions in other people. And this keeps stopping them making forward momentum and progress in their life, aka being happy and fulfilled. And don't get me wrong, we all have to deal with pressures, stressors, and things that happen that can seem negative or heavy. Those are things that help make you stronger, but they're also, that amount of pressure is put there in order to bring things to the surface so you can fix it and heal it and or recognize it and adapt it going forward in a much more useful manner. So there's a beautiful quote: unhealed people bleed on others. And gosh, this is true. And I'm sure we've all met people in there at one point in our lives where they are just completely unhealed, and everywhere they go, they just bring destruction and chaos and hurt or anger or just all the negative feelings, right? And you sit there and you say, did they even know that they're bringing all of this on themselves? And very few times do they actually understand it's them bringing it on. It's not everyone else, the way that they'll tell you it's everyone else in the world, but it's actually them. You cannot understand the world around you and other people unless you know yourself, because of how humans are conditioned and how we work in the world. We see everything through our own lens. So, how can you truly have compassion or empathy for another person if you don't have compassion and empathy for your own self? And I get it. It's very, very easy to say, well, I'm harder on myself than I am on everybody else. Okay, but if you're giving other people a pass on certain things, but you're going to sit there and keep doing the same behaviors over and over and over again, not changing anything, but you continually make yourself the whipping post, how is that helping anything other than maybe at the core, you're getting some sort of goodie from it? Maybe you like beating yourself up. Maybe you're a masochist. Who knows? But when you know yourself, you would know the answer to that question. Are you what you want to attract? And this is another point that I'm going to make in here. I hear a lot of people talk about, I want to manifest this, or this is the kind of partner or friend or whatever, a job even that I want for my life. And they'll start listing off all these wonderful attributes. And don't get me wrong, they are wonderful attributes. But once you're done with that list, you need to turn around and ask yourself, what am I potentially lacking in that someone like that or a job like that would not be ready for, or I wouldn't be healthy for? So, throughout this episode, I'm going to give you little examples here and there of real life things that I've actually encountered, and hopefully will drive the point home. So, case in point, had a friend wanted to manifest her future partner. And wonderful, wonderful, wonderful attributes. I want someone loyal, strong, happy, all the things, right? Deep, spiritual, et cetera, et cetera. And so she starts getting down to the physical appearance. I want him really good looking. I want him really fit. I want him, to really be concerned with what he looks like. And so I stop her and I say, quick question. If you want someone with all of those attributes, which are great attributes, I'm not saying that you don't deserve them, but if you think about what it is that you're saying, you basically want someone who's in the gym 5 to 7 days a week and who eats extremely healthy. Like they're very conscientious of their diet and their exercise in order to maintain looking that way. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you don't cook, you eat fast food all the time, and you haven't been into a gym in 15 years. So if this wonderful person plops down from outer space and lands on your couch and says they want to be with you, would you be a positive or a negative for their life? Would they start eating fast food as a result of being with you because that's all you eat and you don't like healthy food? Would they stop going to the gym because all of their free time would now be hanging out with you? So it's very easy to manifest I want, I want, I want without thinking about the fact that there are other people involved in this scenario, especially when manifesting something involves other people, which most of the time it does. So after you write out your list of everything you want to manifest in a partner, friend, job, whatever it is, you also need to look at, would I be a good fit for that? It's very easy to say, oh, I want a job that pays me this and allows me to work from home. But if you don't put in the caveat that occasionally I get to go out or, my hours are set at this and that, you could potentially be at home all the time and never have any free time to leave home to go see friends or family or do errands or chores. And that would make you somewhat of a hermit. And if you're a person who thrives or needs to be around other people and have that physical contact and socialize, that job could be a potential negative for you. And a lot of times people think with a job, okay, I could just leave the job if that's too much for me. But you're not realizing you have managers, your employer, your coworkers who are now depending on you because you've been hired at this job. And if you're going to up and quit, you now have put all of your workload on all these other people. And I'm not saying, oh, guilt yourself into staying at a job that you don't like. But if you had thought through fully what it is that you're trying to bring about, and if you know yourself well enough, you would have already known, I need something where I am out with people or socializing, or I have set hours and I'm capable of being able to socialize. And that is knowing yourself enough and respecting the fact that your life in all capacities is affecting other people. And if you want people to consider you, your feelings, and everything that affects you, then you also have to respect them. So every major institution has some form of getting to know and understand yourself. 12-step programs, all of them. They all talk about getting to know yourself and doing a complete moral inventory, figuring out what you've done, what made you tick, what made you get to the point where you chose whatever you chose, right, as a crutch, and then how to break out of that habit from there. We have it in the Gnostic Gospels. It's all about understanding and knowing yourself so that you can commune with spirit on a higher and deeper level. Because again, if you're looking at everything through the lens of your ego, you're not having a really spiritually deep experience. It's very surface. It's the, I did a past life regression and I was so and so in a past life. Well, does that pay your rent? It really doesn't. So, how is that serving you knowing that now? That's all ego stuff. The real deep enriching stuff is, wow, I had this really impactful experience. And now I understand the impact that I'm making on other people. And as a result, I'm going to make sure that I curb certain aspects of maybe my personality or my behavior or reactions so that I'm not hurting other people, or that I realize people look at me in such and such way, and therefore I have a responsibility to live up to that, right? So again, thinking of other people, knowing yourself first though, so that you are able to go that step further. The Catholics have confession. Why would you have confession as an integral part of their religion? It's because they want you conscientious of your behavior. Because if you come in day after day or week after week or whatever the time frame is, and you're constantly confessing the same sin over and over and over again, the point is, hopefully, you're sick of doing 9 million Hail Marys and you'll get the point and you won't make that sin again. That's the original point. Don't ask me where things are at now. The Masons, the Rosicrucians, all of them have in their foundational work getting to know themselves. And this is part of all the esoteric, Hermeticism as well. Same thing, getting to know yourself, because through you knowing yourself, you're better able to understand others and the world at large. How are you supposed to understand a spirit from a higher dimension that absolutely lives outside of space time as we understand it, right, on this tiny earth, if you can't even explain to me why your knee jerk reaction to insert whatever incident there occurred? Where did that come from? Right? So, again, I'm bringing this all back so that you understand the importance of it. Not only does it help your physical life, right, on a daily basis, it helps your relationships, friends, community, job, manifestation, all the things going out. But then on the deeper level, it helps you understand and commune with spirit easier. It helps you understand what is a distraction versus what is meant for you to take action on immediately. And it also makes dreams, which everyone seems to be dreaming lately, it makes dreams a lot easier to understand. Is this a dream that is my subconscious yelling out for help for me to work on something? Or is this a bigger issue dream? Like this is for multiple people or for the world at large of things to come? Because a lot of times the dreams are yourself, your higher self, or even your subconscious self that's coming out and asking for help for you to look at something. And it's very, very easy to ignore it if you don't know yourself. You are not going to change unless you know what it is that needs to be changed. And caveat, if you are willing to stop blaming other people. And that's a big one because it's very, very easy to say, well, I'm this way because XYZ happened or so and so did this or etc. Instead of being really honest, I've always kind of had a propensity to be this way. This person just, really threw me over the edge with it, perhaps. But Are you ready to stop blaming others and actually take full accountability for who you are and your actions and your choices, past, present, and future? If you are, come along with me and let's take a ride through some examples. So let's start off with the ego. The ego is there, it's kind of a dual purpose, right? So the ego is there to help prop you up and give you confidence, albeit sometimes false confidence, to help you get through life, right? To help you move and take action or just be able to exist with your head held high. And why I say false confidence is there's a lot of people who throw a lot of bluster around. I can do this, I can do that, whatever it is. But can they back it up? And that's the reason why they're so loud about what they can do at times, is because they know deep down inside, I don't want anyone to call me on it. So if I'm really loud and act like I'm bigger and better than XYZ, no one's going to really look deeper and find out that in reality, I feel inferior or I'm scared to do this and that, or I'm really not confident because I really don't know how to do X, Y, and Z. Then there's the other part of ego that tells you, I don't need to listen to this video. I know myself already. Look at all the work I've already done. I'm fine. It's everyone else around me that has the issue. Everyone else around me needs to change and get with the program. I'm fine. I'm healed. I've done the work. And that part of the ego is dangerous because that part of the ego will lead to you doing absolutely nothing. It will keep you absolutely where you are right now because you get some sort of goodie from it. And most of the times that I talk to people, and this is the case, the goodie is that everything is comfortable and I don't have to do any work. And so this is where you will get the ego screaming at you, you don't need to listen to this, you're fine. And if it is screaming at you right now, I ask you to pause, take a moment and ask it, how am I fine? And then go ahead and write down a couple things that maybe you want to work with, or maybe that aren't so fine in your life. And really look at those and say, could I do some extra work or not? And if the ego says, well, all of those are other people's problems, there's absolutely nothing you can do about them whatsoever, I want you to write out how you are responsible for some of those situations. All right. Now that we've gotten past the ego stuff, which it's still going to pop its head up every once in a while, there is a goodie that we all get from behaviors. People do not repeat behaviors unless they get some kind of goodie from it. Okay? And this is odd because there are some people that we see repeat really negative behaviors over and over and over again. And you literally have to sit there and think, like, what are they getting out of this? But this is why when you truly know yourself, you're able to go in deeper and figure it out. Because you can ask yourself, well, if that were me and I'm doing this behavior and this is the ramification I keep getting, why would I keep doing it? And then you search a little deeper and you're going to find the answer. So, for instance, people who are always complaining and they never take any action, right, to resolve the issue. They're just, excuse my language, constant bitching, okay, or whining. When you really look deeply, like, well, why wouldn't they want to fix it, right? To them anymore because every time it's about the same old issue that everyone is giving them advice on and they never take it. It's because they get attention from the venting and the whining. And again, that ego is keeping them stuck so that they don't have to do the hard part. But they get to bend everyone's ear and everyone feels sorry for them until those people stop feeling sorry, in which case they go and they find a new batch of people to feel sorry for them. And the circle continues and the cycle continues. And these are the people that you will see that constantly talk about, I want to move, or they've gone through all of their friends and they want to move because life is so hard here. And you start to realize moving isn't going to solve it. You need to change because that issue is going to be present with them wherever they go. It might be nice and new and fun in a new area for a couple weeks or months until the cycle starts repeating. So then we have to look at the people who self sabotage. Like, why isn't XYZ working for them when, let's say, hundreds, millions, thousands of other people have done the exact same thing and it seems to all work for them, right? But there's just this one person that it seems to never work for. And you do have to ask yourself, where am I self sabotaging in my own life? And that's a very hard question because almost everyone does it in some aspect. It could be relationships, it could be work, it could be, friendships, it could be in even just with their self. So one thing I had to deal with is I tend to take on a little too much, right? Because there's that part of me that says I still have the capacity to, work a 20-hour day and sleep 4 hours and I'm going to be fine and I can take all this stuff on. And then I get so overwhelmed that I either get sick because my body says, "Hey, we're shutting her down, like stop," or I get so fried and frazzled that then I'm just not fun to be around. And I need to basically go bench myself until I can calm down and get some rest. So I have to be really cognizant that I'm not self sabotaging by taking on too much stuff, which means I tell people, hey, I will get to this. And then I give myself a longer time frame than I normally would, right? Especially if you're in the middle of your day and someone's asking you for something and it's something that's going to, potentially take a half an hour to an hour. You don't know when you're going to be able to have time to dedicate just to that. So if you give yourself a more open window of time, then you're able to plan better. And then maybe you put it on a list and you have to cross it off the list. This is my list of things I need to get done this week. And if that's how you have to do it, that's how you have to do it. But then you need to go in a little bit deeper and say, okay, well, why do I have the propensity to take on more? And for myself, being completely honest, it's just because I've always been in a position where I've had to take on so much for other people who weren't able to. And so it's very normal to me to do that. I do like to be of help and of service to others. That makes me feel good. That's the goodie I get from it, right? But then I have to look, where is this negatively impacting in my life and realize, okay, I'm not able to take on everything. And sometimes you have to say no. And other times you just have to say, yeah, I'll help you with it, but it's going to take some time. And then if person needs it urgently, right, they'll find somebody else. And you have to be okay with that. And I'm letting y'all know this is a process. And this is something that you're going to be reevaluating constantly and doing over and over and over again. Because you might not get what works on the first try. I sure didn't. I had to have a whole sit down with myself and I set up this whole thing. And then, of course, life happens, it throws a calamity at you. And I went right back to my old habits. And then I had to stop, regroup, and then make a whole plan all over again that was much more sustainable. Forgive yourself the same way you would forgive someone else if you were watching this happen and you knew another person was that way, right? And you would have some empathy, some compassion for them. That's how you have to act for yourself as well. You have to have empathy and compassion. Okay, at least I'm trying. Did I succeed? No, but I did it better than I did last time. And that will give you that little shot of ego juice that you need, right? To be proud of yourself, to say, okay, I'm going to keep moving forward. So let's go into a couple other examples of how I've found this to manifest. And these are great examples because these are people that I knew really, really well, and I watched them do it. One was this very beautiful woman, great education, very, very smart, great college education, great degree, all the things. And yet, in her business capacity, she was like a wallflower. She dressed like a wallflower to kind of disappear, and she would not talk very much. She was very, very low little voice like this. And So what would happen was she wasn't speaking with authority. And so people would think, oh, she's not confident of what she's telling me. So therefore, I'm going to go get another opinion. And then she'd get really frustrated because why aren't people listening to me? And so we worked together a little bit. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about your approach. Why are you speaking so quietly and so low, and you're doing an inflection that almost makes it sound like you're asking a question when you're making a statement? And when we really, really dug down deep, she had a fear of looking dumb because when she was really, really young, she had seen a couple other women in her life, and men had called them dumb as much as they are now. And so as a result, she had a fear of being a woman that would be called dumb. And so what she did is she tried to make herself virtually invisible and very, very quiet, because who would yell and call someone dumb who's so sweet and you can barely even see, i.e., wasn't trying to make herself a target. So in working together, we had to really work on her bolstering her confidence and speaking with a little more confidence, dressing a little different so that she would be noticed. Not that everyone's checking her out, but just that you could see humans there instead of, is that a statue? And once all that changed, all of the previous issues went away. And it was once she reiterated to herself, you know what? I'm not dumb, and no one's going to be allowed to call me dumb. And I'm not dumb because look at this great education. Like I have all these credentials backing me up on the fact that I really do know my stuff. So once she discovered that about herself, all of those coping mechanisms that she used to hide went away. And now she's flourishing. So basically, what I'm saying is let's break down the desire, whether it's a positive or negative. Where does it come from? You need to figure out the source. And sometimes the source, you're going to go back real far. And that's usually by saying, okay, when did this start? And then you want to look back if no incident exactly makes sense. You want to keep going back from there. Is this something that I saw with other people? Like in the example I just mentioned. She had seen this happen to other people, didn't want it to happen to her, so she created coping mechanisms to make sure. You also need to ask, why does it exist? Right? Did it happen directly to you? Did it happen with somebody else? Or is it something you heard about? And then you need to look at the coping mechanisms and ask, why are those in place and how do they serve me? Are they beneficial or are they negative? And then lastly, if it's a behavior, how can you harness it for good or for better in order to fully realize your potential with whatever it is, i.e., not be a stick in the mud or be a happier person in general or just not have certain things happen over and over again. So this example is going to be a bit wild, but for anyone out there who is having any kind of issues with substance abuse, or even if it's an addiction to something else, this is a really great example. There was a person who was using a substance and they were deeply immersed with the life. They really didn't have any sober people in their life, but they wanted to stop using this. They wanted to get out of the life. They just didn't know how. They had no sober people around them. Everyone in their life, family, friends, everything revolved around this lifestyle. So in working out, okay, where did it come from? Okay, well, we know where it came from, right? Because obviously you were raised around it. Everyone did this. So it's kind of normal that you eventually were going to do it. No one was telling you not to. And then we break down, well, why is it there? Again, same thing. It's there because you witnessed this for so long. And then we started to dig into what is the need? And this is where it got interesting. When we got down to brass tacks, it was not the substance itself that the person wanted or even craved or needed. It was the lifestyle. So then we had to break down further. Okay, well, what about the lifestyle keeps bringing you back and drawing you in? And then we started to notice, okay, little bit of an adrenaline junkie and really likes the benefit of when you make a sale or when something goes good, right? So, starting to think outside the box, okay, well, what kind of lifestyle can you have not involved with that lifestyle or substance that would enrich your life and allow you to live sober and not be associated with that lifestyle anymore? And when we dug in deep enough, what we found out was a car salesman. Because car salesmen, right? They're constantly going for the next sale. And it's that very kind of like adrenaline sales driven life. Well, this person ended up being a car salesman and they were fantastic at it and ended up being completely sober. They own a house now, a bunch of cars, a really wonderful lifestyle. And then they became an example for other people within their family and friends of you can actually make it. Like there are things that you can do outside of that lifestyle that they grew up in that were beneficial. And other people started to mimic and replicate what they were doing. And it ended up having this beautiful compound effect where lots of people got help from it. So yes, this work is about you, but everything you do to yourself exponentially compounds out to other people, whether you know it or not. Okay. Even if you don't realize that you think maybe no one looks at you, no one thinks about you, like what impact am I having on anyone's life? Absolutely nothing. I can guarantee you there's at least 5 to 10 people out there, whether they're at the grocery store, the gas station, whatever it is, that know and that care. And I have a lot of real life experience with that. I got to see somebody unfortunately made a really bad decision in their life. They thought no one cared, no one loved them, no one appreciated them, no one ever thought of them, and they went and did a really horrible, horrible thing. And the amount of people that came out and said, I knew this person. I never thought that they would do this, but, this little vigil was held. And I looked around, I thought that person thought they were so lonely, but yet look at all these people standing here who showed up, who were just people who went to their gas station. And they thought, oh, no one cares. But in reality, there are almost 100 people there. 100 people showed up that this person thought they had no one. So again, we all have people who care. So then we get into attitude, right? And again, you got to figure out where's the goodie. So we've all met people who are just a little bit of a sourpuss. Like they look angry, they kind of act angry, or everything's kind of negative or rude with them. And it makes you wonder like what's going on with them, right? That they're so upset about. Is it they're upset within themselves, or in some cases it could be that the world is just too harsh for them. And so they've built up this really hard exterior personality so that people aren't able to get in and get close and hurt them. And we've hopefully all heard that. So then we get into examples of detrimental behavior, especially when it comes to our partners or our really close friends. And there are situations where, one partner always has a roving eye or they're a constant cheater. And I know there's that old adage of, they've done it once, they're going to keep doing it. And there are some people that it really was a one-off thing because they were willing to do the work and make sure that it never happened again. And or they know if they get divorced, they're going to have to pay. So when you think about this, what would be the desire? And it's really, really hard when you're in the position of you're the one hurt, right? To try and figure out what was on the other person's mind, because it's very easy to say, well, what didn't I do that would make them do this to me? Without realizing what's missing in them that made them go and do this awful thing. And then once in a while, life is going to put you in a position where you've been so hurt by someone who did insert whatever they did. And all of a sudden, you're in that opposite position of the person that you vilify. And it's weird because suddenly you're going to realize what that person that you've vilified part most all of your life was going through. There are going to be times when you are put in the opposite position of someone that you have vilified, or a type of person or situation that you have vilified. And it's almost a karmic joke to put you in the position of that villain unknowingly until, halfway through or the end, for you to get the experience of what was it like on the other side. It's very easy to say, oh, dad ran away because this woman was a temptress or a witch and she put a spell on him, or whatever the case may be. But it's very, very difficult to be in that situation yourself and say, no, there were problems in the relationship, way before this other person came along. But then this other person came along and they just ticked all the boxes of what it is that I really wanted or needed. And I fell in love and I fell out of love with the other person. And in that, I still say you need to do the right thing. If you're in a relationship and you have feelings or want to be with someone else, you need to end it properly and then proceed on free and clear into a new relationship. But what's always fascinating to me are the people who do not realize that this is just a karmic lesson and that it's not a profound and deep love affair, that they're not going to end up on a Hallmark movie, together selling Christmas trees off of a mountain for the rest of their life. So if you have been lucky enough, and I say lucky because it actually is a gift. If you have been lucky enough in life where you've been put in the alternate position of whoever you've vilified or made the villain in your story, look at yourself and look at them and give them compassion and forgiveness, the same that you're giving to yourself. Because you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. And that's very, very important to get that point across, because it's very, very easy to beat ourselves up and to say, oh, okay, but it's very hard to look in the mirror and say, I forgive you. You didn't know. And a lot of times it's because we weren't self-aware. We didn't know ourselves. And I'm telling you, to this day, I'm still astonished at the amount of people who just really don't know themselves and all the trouble that that leads to. If you have a habit of being a certain way in a relationship and it always ends up turning out the same way, you need to check into what it is that you're doing and what you need to potentially modify about your behavior and or who you're attracting and why. It's very easy to say, oh, I guess I'm a bull because I keep running toward red flags. But again, there's some goodie that you get from being with people with all those red flags, right? You think you're going to a circus. Well, some people like chaotic circus people. They do. I have known a lot of them that if they were with a really nice, normal, someone who's like an accountant with a stable job and a stable life, they would be bored to tears. And then once in a while, you have cases where opposites attract. The hermit who wants to kind of stay in all the time ends up being with the super extrovert who wants to go out all the time. But they work because one helps pull the other one out of the house every once in a while, and the hermit helps stabilize the party animal. So there are positives in this, is what I'm saying. But seeing that instead of getting frustrated, being like, oh, they always want to go out all the time and all I want to do is stay in, instead of seeing, okay, there's a positive here, we just need to accrue a little more balance. Because to be honest, you cannot change other people as much as we want to, and we try. And Lord knows I was the queen of, I'm gonna save them, I'm gonna help them, right? Back in the day. And I take that honestly, right? Because I truly believe I've changed. So why wouldn't other people be able to change? It was because I was missing the fact that not everyone wants to change. And finally, when I started seeing things within myself that I didn't want to change, because I had realized, well, this works to my advantage and I can harness this or I can channel this in a positive area, Then I was able to understand other people better and say, oh, okay, they don't want to change because they get X, Y, and Z from it. And X, Y, and Z is not always something that we're going to think is a positive. But again, you got to meet people where they are. To them, getting a whole bunch of negative attention or getting a whole bunch of people talking trash about them, that's exciting for them because in their mind, well, you're talking about me. And, that whole like all press is good press. Instead of, I'd rather have people think of me as insert words here, right? And want to really put out who you really are into the world. And the other part of this process too is when you get to know yourself, there's going to be things that are going to pop up that you don't like. But there's people in the world that you don't like. And yet you can still give them grace and compassion. They still deserve to exist. It's in what capacity in your life do they get to exist from that point forward once you recognize that. And that's when you can say, okay, this no longer works for me from here on out. I'm going to change my behavior or I'm going to modify my responses. And when you start thinking that through, you're thinking that through for yourself, but it's going to impact you because it's impacting other people. Suddenly you're easier to be around, or suddenly you're a lot more fun to be around, or suddenly you're not energy draining everyone you've ever spoken or talked to. And it's also going to open yourself up so that you are able to see those red flags and you're better able to discern who you want in your life. Who gets to ride shotgun, who gets to ride in the back seat, who gets to ride in the trunk, and who isn't even going to be allowed in the county. And this will help light years with so many different aspects of your life. Just there's gentle boundaries, and then there's the opposite. And I'll tell you what, I had something happen recently with more than a few people where there were these dreams that people were having, and there was this female who kept popping up in all of their dreams. And she was off and not what she looked like, and everyone had a different reaction to her. And so finally, I was given permission by someone to go into the dream and go talk to this thing to figure out what it was and why it kept popping up. And basically, what it told me was, I'm checking in to see the progress of these people. And I said, okay, well, explain. What it was explaining was, well, normally their reaction to this circumstance would be this. But when I came in, it was to almost force them to react completely the opposite as normal, to make sure that they had the capacity to do so for their growth and for what's to come in the future. And so, if that was just a small test with a few people, how many more of you out there is this happening with? And I can guarantee Spirit is coming around a lot, and the messages are getting very clear and very concise. But if you don't know how to discern what is a subliminal garbage dump dream versus what is an actual oracle dream from Spirit, trying to give you a larger message, how are you going to know? If you're having all these experiences thrown at you, and I can tell you guys, constant with me. A lot of them I find are just small little distractions. They'll mean something maybe in the future, maybe they won't. But I'm not going to stop my entire day to hunt down all of these different clues to figure it out because I've put up that boundary with, hey, if you want me sane and able to like work and talk with people and live a normal life, I'm going to ignore things until they either come in threes or if they're so big and significant that you've raised my eyebrow. I either has to be like some super high weirdness to it. And that's what I had to do because I'm very open, obviously, as most of you know who listen to me. And so I get bombarded with things. And on top of the things that I get, I have other people coming to me with their things, which is good because once in a while I'm able to see, okay, this is now popped up with numerous different people who aren't connected So there's something to this. Let's dig in a little deeper. Versus, okay, this is happening literally to everyone across the board. This is something for the collective that is now happening. I am one of those people who I kind of monitor things. And I like to let you all know. And to be perfectly honest, right now, we've got timelines that are collapsing and timelines that are merging in order to prepare us for the convergence when we're able to live in more community with different dimensional beings. We're able to understand and move out of the ego to see that we are not the only things living on this planet. We're able to open up and actually have an open discourse with all of these different beings and entities. Why do you think I say at the beginning of every show, hello, lovely beings? Because humans are not the only thing on this planet. And also, humans are not the only things listening to my channel. Hopefully, some of you have some animals around that are listening right now. Hi, LT. And as a result, you don't want to stymie or stop that communication. It's happening. We all know there's a shift happening. I have a very small channel. I am very hard to find. A lot of people have heard of me, but to actually get to this video is a lot harder than most people think. And I don't say that with any kind of ego. I'm not doing anything. It's just how it's set up. I'm not big. I'm not out for fame. I'm not pushing this as a business. And I'm doing all of that because I don't need to. This is my gift back to the world in whatever capacity I can give. And I try to give as much as I possibly can on these videos for free. I'm not monetized. That's why you're going to get commercials. I'm not pushing for followers or people to subscribe. I will never ask you to comment, like, subscribe, none of that. Because that's not what I need to do. But when it comes to this work, I'm humble enough to tell you I don't have all the answers. No one really does. There are times when I'll say, it doesn't make sense to me right now, or I haven't heard that, or I'll listen for it, or I don't know, because there are times I don't. But when you know yourself, hopefully that's going to exponentially grow and other people will want to get to know themselves. And then we can all heal and really, 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 as a cohesive team, move forward into this new world that we're all emerging into. Now, there's a little book that you can pick up. It's only a couple dollars. It's called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. This book not only talks about manifestation, but it also talks about mindset and about as you think, so there you are. And it's a really deep, small little read. I highly recommend everyone put it on their list. If there's a PDF out there for free, I will put it in the show notes. But thoughts are things. Please remember that. Please be cognizant of what you're thinking has repercussions, not only for you, but for other people in the world at large. So, if you walk away from this video with anything, it is start dissecting yourself and watching everything that you do, everything that you think, all your decisions, and figure out what your goodies are. Learn yourself so deeply that no one can ever, ever, ever tell you any different because you know the absolute truth.